So of all the stories we looked at this morning, the one that kind of really tore at my heart the most was the one about the woman who was found dead inside a truck that wasn't hers. I mean, there's just so many different things about that tear at me. One is, who was she? Was she a visitor to Anchorage who just happened to find herself without a place to sleep that night and was going around looking for some place where she could just warm up? If there had been a blanket or a sleeping bag in the truck, would that have saved her life? Not necessarily, but what represented, exactly what kind of responsibility do the rest of us have? Should I put a sleeping bag in my truck in case somebody wants to crawl into it to sleep? I don't have that responsibility. I don't. At least certainly not in terms of no legal responsibility to do so. I can't think of anything like that except what Jesus said about the Good Samaritan. You remember the story. The Samaritans and the Jews were not really getting along very well. So that's kind of the background. Not exactly enemies, but certainly not allies, not friends. And so when Jesus used the example of a Samaritan as someone who wouldn't naturally help out a Jew for any reason, that's why this story was so poignant. You remember it, right? A man is on his way to, I think it's Jericho, on a business trip. He gets attacked by robbers and left for dead. Along the road comes a priest who sees the man but crosses over to the opposite side of the street and keeps going. Now, I believe he says something along the lines of not wanting to get himself impure by getting involved in this man's unfortunate event. Next comes a Levite, also a religious person, a person who's very concerned about doing the right thing in terms of keeping the law. Doesn't help the guy out. The third person who comes down the path is a Samaritan, a person who has absolutely no compunction. Certainly not a religious one, certainly not any kind of a tie nationally or anything like that to help this guy out. But because of his humanity, seeing that man lying there, he goes over and he helps him out. He doesn't just say, oh, here's some money, buddy, good luck getting into town. He dresses his wounds, picks him up and puts him on his donkey and carries him into town, where he then pays the innkeeper in advance to take care of this guy. That is huge. Now, I don't know if that's a responsibility that Jesus is giving the rest of us. I think certainly some people feel bad that we are supposed to be like the Good Samaritan. I think in a larger sense, Jesus was making an illustration. Which of these three men was the true neighbor to the man who was injured? Was it his own countrymen? Was it his religious leaders? No, it was the guy who actually got down and helped him. He was the one who was actually acting like a neighbor. Putting that into the context of this poor woman crawling into a truck. Who is the neighbor to her? Nobody was. It wasn't the government. There was no program set in place to help her. It wasn't her family, her friends. They obviously, or she wouldn't have died alone. It wasn't the man whose truck it was, and I'm not blaming him for not having a sleeping bag in his truck. Believe me, it's not his responsibility. The reason I ask this, though, is that at the same time we saw a story today in Anchorage of a drinking home, basically, where they're allowing people to continue to drink and pay a reduced rent, which, again, some say, oh, you're just encouraging substance abuse. Oh, well, look, if they're going to do it anyway, if you're going to provide an opportunity, the part that bothers me is that it's being provided with government money. It's not truly voluntary. Look, if you feel like you want to be the Good Samaritan and you want to help people and you want to fund a place where they can go and continue to drink and have reduced housing, maybe even free, good on you. Go for it. Do it with your own money. Take donations. Get other people of like mind. Don't come and take someone else's money to go and pay for the thing that you want. Right? I mean, that's not what Jesus said. Jesus didn't say the Good Samaritan went and took money to pay for this guy's injuries. He didn't take it from the Levite or the priest. He used his own money. That's a hard thing. It really is. I mean, some of us have children, some more than others, I suppose, and we have a responsibility to take care of our children. You don't have a responsibility to take care of my children. There is nothing out there that says that I should be able to expect someone else to go and pay for something that my kids need. Now, if somebody looking at my children says, Steve, you don't really dress them stylishly enough. You really ought to do something about that. I'm going to help you out and give your children some nice, really spiffy clothes. Okay, fine. I'll accept it. You know what? You know why? Because that's not important to me. Their food, their basic housing, their health, that's important. What kind of clothes they wear? Look, they can wear hand-me-downs. I think you get where I'm going a little bit down a bunny trail, but the point is this. Nobody has a responsibility of taking care of my children except me. If somebody else chooses to offer generosity, that's great. But at the point where you're taking money from somebody else to pay for somebody, you're no longer being a good neighbor. You're being a thief. Now, again, back to this issue of the woman who died in a truck by herself in Anchorage, probably just died of hypothermia. Again, that's speculation. They don't actually have a cause of death. They haven't released it yet. But they did say there's no sign of foul play, nothing suspicious. So you've got, on this one hand, a woman who could have used some help. On the other hand, you have this government-funded program that is providing subsidized housing. $250 a month is all they have to pay. And then the rest of their income they can use however they want to, obviously. Do you see a disconnect there? I do. And I think the disconnect is in here, it's in here, and it's in here. People are not right in the way in which they view their responsibility to the higher powers. People are not right in the way in which they act toward their fellow man. And people are not right in how they really think about things. And I'm not going to tell you what is right or what is wrong. I'm just simply pointing out, here's the fact of the case. Here's the question to be asked. How can you be a good neighbor to the person on the street? Do you want to put a sleeping bag in your car? Do you want to put a tent out in your front yard? Do you want to help fund a sleep-off center? Do you want to help fund a program that allows people to pay a subsidized rate and live maybe even rent-free? What to you defines being a good neighbor? Now keep in mind that at the moment that you start taking against someone's will their resources to pay for the thing you want, you are no longer being a good neighbor. You're being a thief. That's my 2 cents. Hope you enjoyed it today. If you'd like to learn more, check out the website, which is, of course, radiofreespeech.com. This podcast will be posted there and on YouTube. Check out my channel, Face for Radio. Once again, it's radiofreespeech.com. If you like what I'm doing and you want to support it, I've got a subscribe button and a donate button. Either way, I'm here to serve you. Let me know what you want in the comments below or send me an email, steve@radiofreespeech.com. Once again, steve@radiofreespeech.com.